Let's talk about the 5 women's products that should be avoided. Now, there are always alternatives, everything toxic out there. And when we talk about products, there are still things on the market that are very unsafe, very toxic, and you need to be aware of them. So let's start with compact powder. So we're talking about talc powder or talcum powder, and they use that in all sorts of women's products, from creams to finishing powders, materials that are used for eyeshadow, blushes, foundations, and many beauty creams. Now, talc is the softest mineral and it's highly absorbable. So it'll absorb the oil from your skin and give you an appearance of kind of a soft, silky texture, at least at first. Now, here's the problem with talcum powder. When they mine it, it always comes with something else called asbestos. And so up to 20% of all products out there with talcum powder have asbestos as a contaminated ingredient. And the problem with asbestos is it can leave you with a malignancy called mesothelioma. So if you're currently using compact powder, you want to find a brand that is asbestos free. Now, there's 2 sites that I put in the description that you can find a non-toxic talcum powder. All right, number 2, nail polish and nail remover. Boy, I don't understand how some people that work in the environment of doing nails can tolerate the toxicity of these chemicals. And if you personally work in a place like that, you at least need to get in an air ionizer to help reduce these chemicals in the air. But what's the big deal with nail polish? Well, it has chemicals like toluene, which is in gasoline. I mean, it's a solvent. It's in there to keep the paint from separating. But if you breathe it in, it can create a central nervous system toxicity, and it can have bad effects on your reproductive organs. They also put formaldehyde in nail polish. Now, what's wrong with formaldehyde? Well, it's a great preservative if you're embalming someone, but you have to realize that the nail is alive and your body can absorb things through the nail. So whatever you put on the nail gets absorbed. Then we have dibutyl phthalate. So this ingredient adds some flexibility to the paint and it prevents it from cracking and turning brittle. However, it gets absorbed in your blood and it can negatively affect your reproductive organs. I mean, it's considered an endocrine disruptor. Then when you put the paint on, then eventually you have to remove it with nail polish remover. And they use acetone for that. Now, the problem with acetone is it's on the hazardous substance list. It has a clear, colorless, kind of a sweet odor. And it's a solvent for oils, fats, waxes, resins, plastics. I mean, if you read this list, it's incredible. It's like, can cause headaches, nausea, vomiting, dizziness, lightheadedness, and even passing out. It may affect the kidneys and the liver. It's a flammable liquid and a dangerous fire hazard. Oh, yeah. And then in the first aid section, skin contact. Quickly remove contaminated clothing. Immediately wash contaminated skin with a large amount of soap and water. Well, guess what? You're putting this right on the surface of your body. I don't know. Do people think that it doesn't get absorbed, or because it's on the nail and the nail is supposedly dead, which is not, is somehow not going to affect them? Now, as far as a cancer hazard, acetone has not been tested for its ability to cause cancer in animals. So even though they didn't test it, doesn't mean that it can't cause cancer. So anything that is a fire hazard should not be put on your body. What I recommend is simply find an eco-friendly, non-toxic nail polish and nail remover. They have them, and I'll put a link down below with a few that I found. All right, number 3, intimate wash products. They call these feminine hygiene products, which they have washes and wipes and shaving gels and lubricants. And apparently a lot of women buy these products, but are they really needed? And what are they doing to the microbiome that lives in the vaginal canal? The chemicals are killing the microflora and altering the pH. There's a much increased risk when you use these products of developing cervical cancer, UTIs, pelvic inflammatory disease, HPV, genital warts, genital herpes. But why? Because you're destroying the immune system. Those microbes are the defense mechanism. And so if you don't have a defense mechanism, you're more susceptible to getting unfriendly pathogens. The normal lactobacillus that lives in the vaginal canal produces lactic acid, which actually really helps the pH become slightly acidic, and that acts as another barrier. So when the pH increases and becomes more alkaline, a woman becomes more susceptible to having a lot of problems and irritation and redness, etc. So a very simple solution is to use a probiotic for vaginal health, okay? I don't have any brand names, but you definitely want to check that out and go in that direction. All right, then we get to number 4, hair removal creams. And the chemical mostly used is called thioglycolic acid. Now, anytime you put anything on your skin and then within minutes later, you can wipe off your hair, that should bring up a red flag, because what this acid does is it dissolves the keratin in your hair. And guess what? Thioglycolic acid is also on the hazardous substance list. It's a corrosive chemical, and contact can severely irritate and burn your skin. Now, as far as the cancer hazard, well, they haven't tested it to see if it causes cancer in animals, so the jury's still out. But check this out. It says avoid skin contact, yet you're putting it on your skin. And it even says to wear protective gloves when you're using this acid. So if you don't like hair on your body, don't use this chemical. You might want to just wax. All right, and number 5, permanent hair dyes. There's over 5,000 different chemicals that they use in dyeing your hair. And unfortunately, some are known carcinogens. They can cause cancer. The chemicals are going on your scalp, which has the ability to get absorbed and go right into your bloodstream. And they can act on your endocrine system. They can affect your hormones. Some chemicals are considered endocrine disruptors. And in one large study called the Sister Study, which was performed on 45,000 women, they found there was an increased risk of breast cancer and bladder cancer. So there are natural dyes out there that you should use. But when you're dyeing your hair, always ask questions and look at the ingredients of what's in this dye to make sure they're just not filled with a list of chemicals that you can't even pronounce. And because we're on the topic of chemicals and toxicity, the next best video for you to watch would be the one on the liver. Check it out right here.